Welcome to today's show. So I'm going to talk about why MSTR and BMNR issuing more shares is actually good and why this is not dilution in the way that people think it is. And many people are actually getting this wrong. And I'm going to clear it up here today. I'm also going to talk about why this is good for you as a shareholder. If you own MSTR or BMNR, why is issuing more shares in the correct way actually good for you as a shareholder? I'm going to break this down very, very simply today so you can walk away understanding this. Now, BMNR is having its annual meeting on January 15th, and one of the things on the table is increasing the number of shares they're allowed to issue. And every time people hear that, they panic. Now, before we jump in, not tax advice, not financial advice, not legal advice, do your own research on everything. But I'm going to jump in and dive deep on why issuing more shares is actually good for long-term shareholders. If you want my new book, Money Game, you can get it down below. It talks all about BMNR, MSTR, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and also my daily trading strategy. And you can snag that down below for free. All right, let's jump in. So when you take a look at people hearing the issuing of new shares, they start to panic and they go, oh my God, it's going to drop the price. It's going to drop the price. Now, it's clear that when that happens, the market reacts in a certain way and they panic. And it's because the market doesn't really understand it. And most people don't understand it. Okay. So people say they're diluting the shareholders. This is bad for the stock. But if you understand what companies like MSTR and BMNR are actually doing, this can be the exact opposite of dilution. So the first thing you need to jump in and think about is old thinking versus new thinking. So most people are using old rules for new companies. Old companies that sell products, they care about earnings per share. And then you have new companies like MSTR and BMNR, and they accumulate Bitcoin or Ethereum, and they care about Bitcoin per share if you're MSTR, or they care about Ethereum per share if you're BMNR. That's the game, right? Or if you own BMNR. So let's talk about mNAV and what it means in a very, very, very simple way. So let's make this very simple. Every company has assets. In this case, it's Bitcoin and Ethereum that we're actually talking about. So if the stock market values the company at exactly what those assets are worth, that's an mNAV of 1.0. So when you take a look at the company, you look at the net asset value of their Bitcoin on the balance sheet. If you're looking at MSTR, if you look at the net asset value of Ethereum on the balance sheet, if you're looking at BMNR, and if the stock market values the company at exactly what those assets are worth, you have an mNAV of 1.0. But sometimes the stock trades above that value. So 1.0 means it's not trading above the value at all. Sometimes you see the stock will trade above that value. If it trades at an mNAV of, say, 1.3, which BMNR has traded at a lot over the last year, that means the company, say, has $100 worth of crypto, but the stock market value is at $130. So that extra $30 is actually the premium. Does that make sense? So the $30 above is the premium that the market is willing to pay for the stock above the net asset value of their Bitcoin or of their Ethereum. And this is the huge point that these companies actually run on. Now, most people miss this, okay? So when a company like MSTR and BMNR issue shares while trading at a premium, just like I said before, right? Trading at a premium. So if the mNAV is 1.30, they're trading at a 30% premium. The stock is trading 30% above the net asset value of their crypto that they have on the balance sheet. So when they're doing that, they're not giving away value. They are capturing the premium because the stock is trading at a premium. So let's say, for example, you have BMNR is trading at an mNAV of 1.3. All right. That means investors are willing to pay $1.30 for every dollar of Ethereum on the balance sheet. Pretty simple concept, right? For every dollar of Ethereum on the balance sheet, if the mNAV is 1.3, that means investors are willing to pay $1.30. So that means it's trading at a premium. The stock is trading above the net asset value of the Ethereum on the balance sheet. So what does a smart digital asset treasury company do at this point? They issue new shares. people buy those shares at a higher price. And this is like the whole key here, right? People buy the shares at a higher price. And BMNR takes that money and they buy more Ethereum. And once the Ethereum is bought, it's locked on to the balance sheet. Okay. So that's one of the keys here that we're looking at, is to actually want to turn on the comments box here. There we go. So that's one of the keys to actually look at when you're taking a look at this actual stock. Make sense? Okay. So there we go. So that's one of the most important things to actually look at. All right. So once the Ethereum's bought, so I'm going to repeat this point again. So once if you have MSTR that owns Bitcoin on the balance sheet, or you have BMNR that has Ethereum on the balance sheet, this is really an important part, right? When BMNR issues more shares, or MSTR issues more shares, people buy those shares at a higher price. Okay. And BMNR takes that money and buys more Ethereum, or MSTR takes that money and they buy more Bitcoin. Now, once the Ethereum or the Bitcoin is bought, it's locked onto the balance sheet. And the whole key is that because they issued the shares when the stock was trading at a premium above the net asset value of their crypto. So it's trading at a premium, which is a win. It's trading higher than the net asset value of their balance sheet. So they're taking that, they're getting a win by taking that excess money and taking the shares that they issued into the marketplace, which brings them excess money, and they're taking that excess money and they're buying Bitcoin or they're buying Ethereum, and it gets locked onto the balance sheet. And that's the key point. So why is this not dilution? Yes, there's more shares. Okay. So when you look at that in isolation, it looks like it's total dilution. It's not good for the shareholders. So yes, there's more shares. But here's the really only question that matters. Is there more Ethereum per share after the deal or less? Or if you're buying MSTR and you own it, is there more Bitcoin per share after the deal or less? If the company issues shares above NAV and buys crypto with the money, then the Ethereum per share goes up, or the Bitcoin per share actually goes up. That's not dilution, it's accretion. All right. And you own, as a shareholder, you own a slightly smaller slice of a much bigger pile. And that's key. Okay. That's key. So this is exactly what MSTR has been doing with Bitcoin. So when you look at what Tom Lee and BMNR are doing, they're following the exact same playbook, very, very similar. And so they issue shares when the stock is trading at a premium, and they convert that premium into hard Bitcoin or hard Ethereum. And over time, the Bitcoin per share goes up, or the Ethereum per share goes up. That's the entire strategy. All right. So when BMNR talks about increasing authorized shares on January 15th at their shareholder meeting, which is, they're talking about a massive, massive increase in the ability to authorize shares. We're talking huge, right? The key is not to just hear the word dilution. It's to ask the smarter question. Are they issuing shares above NAV, net asset value of their Ethereum? And are they buying more Ethereum with it? And the answer is yes, they actually are. So long-term shareholders can actually then come out ahead. Now, a lot of times people get this wrong because they hate this idea because it feels backwards. More shares sounds bad, but they're thinking in terms of factories, they're thinking in terms of profits, they're thinking in terms of old money, old models, old companies, which is different than digital asset treasury companies. It's a completely different model. And Bitcoin and Ethereum are different because they are fixed supply assets. The goal is to stack more of them per share. And that's like one of the main strategies that MSTR is deploying. It's one of the main strategies that BMNR is deploying. So yes, do people dislike it? Do people not understand it? Are digital asset treasury companies very volatile? Yeah, because when the market is bullish, that's where it really pays dividends. as you know, figurative or metaphorically speaking, it really pays dividends when the market's bullish because you know, the net asset value of the company, you know, they have the net asset value of the Ethereum, and then the shares are trading for a much higher price, and so the mNAV goes from like 1.3 to 1.5 for BMNR maybe in the future. We saw with MSTR in 2024, the mNAV was 2, 3, 4. So it can get crazy in terms of the stock trading at a premium to its net asset value of its Bitcoin or Ethereum. And when it's bullish, it works for you. When it's not bullish and it's a bearish sentiment like right now, it works against you in terms of the stock price. But none of that changes the fact that these companies are increasing your Bitcoin per share and your Ethereum per share, and that is actually good for you as a shareholder in the long term. And I'm going to break that down, what it actually means for you as a shareholder, not just the concepts. We're going to break that down here in just a little bit. So issuing shares is not automatically bad when it's done above the net asset value of their Bitcoin or their Ethereum, okay? It can increase Bitcoin per share. It can increase Ethereum per share. Once you understand that, the whole game looks completely different, especially zooming out and looking at being a long-term holder of Bitcoin or Ethereum, et cetera, okay? And I should say not a long-term holder of Bitcoin or Ethereum. I should say a long-term holder of MSTR, which owns Bitcoin, and a long-term holder of BMNR, which owns Ethereum. Okay, so let's take a look here then and answer the most important question. Let's say all of this is true, okay? Let's say MSTR increases Bitcoin per share. Let's say BMNR increases Ethereum per share. Why should you as a shareholder actually care? So let's start with the simplest case scenario here, and let's break it down. So imagine if you buy one Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes from $50,000 to $100,000, your Bitcoin actually doubles. That's it. One Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. You don't get more Bitcoin from it. You just get a higher price. And this is the thing that people misduplicate the most. They don't understand this. That's simple. I know my Bitcoin doubles. I just have a higher price, right? I don't get more Bitcoin. If I own one Bitcoin at the time, I still own one Bitcoin. Now let's compare that to MSTR. When you buy MSTR, you're buying a company that holds Bitcoin. But more importantly, you're buying a share, because as a shareholder, I go buy the stock. I'm buying a share, and you're buying a share that's now backed by Bitcoin. This is the whole strategy. Each share represents a small slice of the company's Bitcoin. So as a shareholder, I own, when I own a share of MicroStrategy, a percentage of that share is backed by Bitcoin. Okay. So the key difference, and we'll say this a little bit more slowly here, is what with Bitcoin alone, you only win if the price goes up. With MSTR, you can actually win in two ways. So we'll start to break this down, okay? So way number one that you can win with MSTR, and this is synonymous for BMNR as well, okay? Bitcoin price goes up. If Bitcoin goes up, the value of MSTR's Bitcoin goes up. No secret, right? They hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Bitcoin goes up. The value of MSTR's Bitcoin goes up. Whatever they have on the balance sheet right now, 70 billion. If Bitcoin goes up, the value goes up, right? That helps the stock. Then the second thing to look at here is Bitcoin per share goes up. But this is like the extra gear that most people don't understand. So if MSTR issues shares above NAV, which they've been doing for the last couple of years, and they buy more Bitcoin, then Bitcoin per share actually increases. That means each share that you own as a shareholder is backed by more Bitcoin than before. So when you hear this term of like increasing Bitcoin per share, increasing Ethereum per share, they're able to do that because when they issue more shares and the stock is trading at a premium to the net asset value of the Bitcoin they have on a balance sheet, then that issue of shares becomes accretive because it adds more Bitcoin per share without you actually doing anything. You just own the shares and you're getting more Bitcoin per share every time they do that. And that's why it's good as a shareholder. So let's just say, for an example, and little math purposes here, one share of MSTR represents 0.01 Bitcoin. This is just a hypothetical example, okay? Now, over time, MSTR issues shares smartly, which means they issue shares at a premium to the net asset value of their Bitcoin. They capture the premium, right? Because people are willing to pay more for the stock. That's what a premium is. And they buy more Bitcoin with it. Now, one share, the same share that you own, because they keep deploying this strategy, and this is the whole key, right? They keep deploying the strategy. You issue more shares at a premium, right? The market's willing to pay more for it. They take that money and they buy more Bitcoin. And every time they do that, you still hold the same amount of shares, but your Bitcoin per share is going up. So it's not like you're buying more shares. You might be, but if you're just holding the same amount of shares, your Bitcoin per share is going up by them deploying this strategy. Now, you didn't buy more shares. You didn't add more money, but your Bitcoin exposure per share increased. And that is what their goal is for you as a shareholder. So the share is quietly accumulating Bitcoin for you. Now, imagine this happens again and again and again. And if you watch MSTR's playbook in 2024, 2023, 2022, it was happening again and again and again. They kept issuing more shares in the marketplace, and people were going crazy. Like, they're issuing more shares, they're diluting the shares, they're diluting the shareholders, and literally that is just people who look at only that half of the equation. Yes, there's more shares in the marketplace, but if you're looking at that half of the equation, that is not the truth. That is a part of the truth. The real truth is you're getting more Bitcoin per share. So every time they're doing that, when they're issuing shares at a premium, they are improving the long-term position for the shareholders. Period. End of story. That's how it works. Okay. So as shareholders, like, we can see the market reacts to that and people get in pain. They're like, oh my God, they're issuing more shares. But the more people that understand this, that this is not the old game of finance. And that's where people are stuck. People are stuck in the old game of finance. Like, if a company like an Apple or a Tesla is issuing more shares in the marketplace, yeah, they're diluting the shares. They're investing maybe in long-term things that are going to produce long-term value for the company. But when you literally look at a company like Strategies that's been doing that, and they've been issuing more shares over time, and the Bitcoin price is going up, and they're continuing to grow their Bitcoin stack. They continuously are adding more Bitcoin per share, more Bitcoin per share, more Bitcoin per share. So over the long term, it is good for the shareholders. All right. And that's just a point that anybody who owns the stock should absolutely understand. So when they do it, people don't freak out. When they do it, you just take a long-term view of this stock, which is 4, 5, 6 years into the future, because that's the view one has to have right now, because we're in a completely different cycle. We're not in the 4-year cycle anymore. Like, we're in a cycle that nobody fully understands. We have institutions in the game. Nobody really gets what's going to happen. We know the long-term infrastructure is completely set because more and more large institutions are building on the blockchain and building on Ethereum, and some building on Solana. And so we know that there's so many decisions being made with regulation. There's so many decisions made with large companies that are building on Ethereum that I discussed in yesterday's video. The long-term infrastructure is being set, that Bitcoin and Ethereum and this marketplace with MSTR and BMNR is set for a huge, amazing, amazing future. But in the short term, all the models are broken. The 4-year cycle is broken, and nobody knows what's going to happen next month, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and even next year. But in the long term, when you look at Bitcoin and you look at the strategy of Ethereum over a 4 or 5 year period, do you think that Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to go up over 4 to 5 years? If you do, and you own MSTR and BMNR, and we hit some bullish cycles with Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's going to be a rocket ride into the future. And those who hold these digital asset treasury companies, MSTR and BMNR, can win the game long term. Okay. So that's why understanding this is super, super, super important. All right. So you have these companies like BMNR and MSTR, and they're literally like doing it again and again and again. That's what's happening with BMNR having the shareholder meeting coming up in January 15th. They're literally getting approval to issue a crap load more shares. And so anything you hear in the marketplace that this is not good for shareholders long-term is not true. If they were issuing more shares when the mNAV is below, when the stock is not trading a premium, but it's trading below the net asset value, that's not necessarily a good thing if they keep doing it over and over again. But if you look at the long term of them doing it when the stock's trading at a premium, that is a great thing for shareholders in the long term. Okay? Great thing. Okay? So there you go on it. So when Bitcoin goes up in the future, you're not just exposed to the price when you own MSTR, you're exposed to more Bitcoin than when you started with. Okay? Based on how MSTR is approaching their strategy of accumulating more Bitcoin for you, more Bitcoin per share. Okay? So that's why long-term shareholders care. They're not just betting on Bitcoin when they own MSTR, or if they own BMNR, they're not just betting on Ethereum. They're betting on Bitcoin per share compounding or Ethereum per share compounding. And when you look at what BMNR is doing, they're running the exact same playbook that MSTR has been running. Very, very similar. Very similar, okay? So now let's apply this to BMNR and Ethereum. Just give the example for Bitcoin and MSTR. If you buy one Ethereum, it's very much the same deal as Bitcoin. If ETH goes up, you win. But one ETH is still one ETH, okay? This is if you own Ethereum. The difference with BMNR is if you buy BMNR, you're buying exposure to Ethereum per share. Same thing. Like when you're buying MSTR, you're buying exposure to Bitcoin per share. When you buy BMNR, you're buying exposure to Ethereum per share. So if BMNR issues shares above NAV, net asset value of their Ethereum, and they use that money to buy Ethereum, which they are, the Ethereum per share goes up. Pretty simple. So in the scenario we gave before with Bitcoin, let's say one BMNR share represents 0.05 ETH, hypothetical example. After a smart share issuance, and what's a smart share issuance? A smart share issuance is when the stock is trading at a premium to the net asset value of their Ethereum. So when they do a smart share issuance, now it represents 0.06 ETH, hypothetically. You didn't do anything, okay? You just hold your BMNR. The company did the work, and then your claim on Ethereum increases. You get more Ethereum per share. So over time, if Ethereum becomes more valuable and BMNR keeps increasing ETH per share, then when ETH rallies and it really runs, your shares are backed by more ETH than when you actually started, okay? So key distinction here, owning Bitcoin or Ethereum is powerful. I own Bitcoin, okay? I've been buying Bitcoin since 2018. Owning a company, my friend, in fact, I was sitting with my friend last night. He's like, man, I told my friend sitting on New Year's Eve with him in 2020, and the price of Bitcoin was at $20,000. And he's asking me, he's like, am I too late? Am I too late? I'm like, dude, trust me, you are not too late, okay? At all, in the slightest. And now yesterday we're sitting down years later, talking with him. He did start buying Bitcoin over the years, not enough as he said. And he's like, it's at 80 something thousand right now. Am I still late? I'm still late. I'm like, bro, long term, you're not late. Okay. So owning a company with MSTR BMNR, owning a company that is compounding Bitcoin or Ethereum per share can be more powerful. And this is why some people choose MSTR instead of Bitcoin, and they choose BMNR instead of Ethereum. Because that's always a question, like, why not just buy Ethereum? Why not just buy Bitcoin? Well, I'm laying it out here. Not because it's safer, okay, because it's way more volatile. These DATs, these digital asset treasury companies, are way more volatile. That's why I trade BMNR all the time. It's volatile as hell. It's one of the greatest stocks to trade. If you look at the digital asset treasury companies, Bitcoin, MSTR, and BMNR are like 92% of the trading volume because people trade them like crazy because they're extremely volatile, okay? If you're interested in trading, you can get my book down below, Money Game. I also have a video that teaches you my trading strategy. If you want to know anything about trading, I'll just share with you this real quick, and then we'll get back to Bitcoin per share. You can check out, just look at these are brand new people who are in my community trading. This guy says picked up 1% this morning. This guy picked up 0.58%. This guy picked up 1.19%. I picked up 3% that day. This guy says took it down, 1.3% gain. I'm here another 2%, right? Here's Brandon. Brandon picked up 10%, 10.2% in a day. So, the stock is volatile. We know that. So for me, BMNR is a great stock to own long-term, but it's a tremendous stock to trade. All right. So if you want to learn how to trade, click down below. You get my free trading video, walks you through exactly what I do from a trading perspective. All right. Let's get back to the important part about what we're talking about here is people own BMNR and MSTR not because it's safer and not because it's simpler, because it adds a second engine, accumulation per share, more ETH per share, more Bitcoin per share. Okay. Now, this only works, this strategy that MSTR is deploying and BMNR is deploying, this only works when shares are issued above the net asset value of the crypto they have on their balance sheet. And when the money is actually used to buy Bitcoin or buy Ethereum. And when management is disciplined. If that breaks, the advantage breaks. So you got to look at the strategy of what they're doing. You also got to look at the management. Do you trust in the management? When I look at Saylor and his track record over the last 4 or 5 years, he's been disciplined. He does what he says he's going to do, and he keeps doing it. So you can trust the management as far as I'm concerned on that. Tom Lee, I trust what they're doing, and I trust long-term because Ethereum is a huge part of the digital infrastructure, it's going to be an even bigger part. If you watch my video yesterday, I mean, there's huge news on, the organization, the DTCC, which literally controls like the keeps score for all the stocks, all the bonds, all the ETFs. You're talking about $100 trillion, $200 trillion of assets they keep score for. And they're now basically saying that we are going to partner with a digital company called Canton, and we are going to allow, we are going to keep the score for digital assets online as well. So not only to keep the score for all the assets of stocks, bonds, ETFs, their one condition is we will allow this to happen, this kind of digital transformation shift to where you can now start trading, Apple being tokenized and Tesla being tokenized and all of them being traded on the blockchain, only if they're still allowed to keep score of all of it. They're kind of like keeping the ledger and the scorecard for it. So that is huge news in the marketplace. So when you look at this as a long-term shareholder and you're bullish on where the industry is going as a whole, when you're bullish on where Bitcoin and Ethereum are going as a whole, with all the news pointing in the direction of long-term infrastructure and the build and the regulation that's coming in with companies building on Ethereum and building on the blockchain, like how could one not be bullish long-term? So long-term shareholders don't just ask, where's Bitcoin going? Where's Ethereum going? They ask, is Bitcoin per share going up? If I own MSTR, is Ethereum per share going up? Because that's how compounding really happens, okay? So here's why you as a shareholder actually care. Number one, more ETH per share. When there's more Bitcoin or ETH inside each share, people don't want to sell the stock as cheap. So they look at it like, wow, it's got more ETH per share, more Bitcoin per share. They're not going to sell the stock as cheap. So a share backed by more ETH is worth more than one backed by less ETH, right? If you're looking at the shares like it's backed by more ETH, I'm more interested in that stock when it's backed by more ETH, okay? The market also prices future ETH exposure, right? Not just today's ETH. So stocks don't trade on today, they trade on expectations. If investors believe ETH per share will keep increasing, they're willing to pay a higher multiple for the stock. And that's the basis of the entire strategy we've been talking about today, is like, why are people willing to pay a premium for BMNR or a premium for MSTR? Now, MSTR clearly is not trading at a premium right now, but for the last several years, it has been. So people are willing to trade and buy it at a premium, all right? And they're willing to buy for a premium because of what I've been sharing with you today. So more ETH per share today or more Bitcoin per share today means higher expectations and higher stock price in the long term. Okay, in the long term is the key. We know when it's volatile and the sentiment's bearish, these digital asset treasury companies get whacked, and that's what's been happening. But it doesn't change the long-term fundamentals of BMNR and MSTR. Okay, so all of this creates a compounding effect. That's why one would own MSTR or BMNR over just Bitcoin or Ethereum. Now, in the bearish times, it doesn't seem like the smart choice because your stock's plummeting and it's going down. It's like, oh my God, it's one of the scariest things in the world. So if I'm talking to myself and I'm starting out brand new in the space, like I was in 2018, I'm buying Bitcoin. Even in 2020, when MSTR was out, I bought some MSTR in 2020. I didn't hold it long term, but I bought some. But I didn't fully understand what was going on. I wanted to understand Bitcoin first. So one needs to get the fundamentals first before they start rushing into these digital asset treasury companies. Now, with all that said, the reason I trade the stock BMNR on a daily basis is because I want to pick up more shares. When it's this low priced, it's an incredible opportunity to pick up more shares, whether I would be buying additional shares and putting my own money into it, which I don't want to do, or trading. And when I trade, I get to pick up more shares trading, okay, without taking money out of my pocket, just through trading, okay? So all of this that I've been sharing today creates a compounding effect. Stocks love the fact that ETH price can go up, ETH per share can go up, and those two together multiply each other, all right? And that's the difference when you're looking at ETH price going up and ETH per share going up. Those are the two things you get with a digital asset treasury company like BMNR, not just ETH price going up if you own ETH, okay? So ETH going up is one engine and ETH per share going up is the second engine, and that's what you get with BMNR, all right? Now, it justifies a premium valuation and an mNAV being greater than 1. The market will pay more than asset value. Okay, so you have the asset value of the Ethereum on the balance sheet. Let's say the asset value is $1 billion. We know it's more than that, but just let's say it's $1 billion. So the market will pay more than the asset value when it believes management can turn premiums into more ETH. Okay, The premium itself, meaning the stock trading above the net asset value of Ethereum, the premium value itself becomes fuel for future ETH purchases. And that is the whole game of what MSTR and BMNR do. That's what they're doing, okay? The goal is stock trades at a premium to the value of their Bitcoin or Ethereum that they have on the balance sheet. When it trades at that premium, they want to issue more shares. When they issue more shares at a premium, it's accretive for the shareholders. It's good for the shareholders. And they're getting more ETH per share and more Bitcoin per share, depending on which of these stocks you own. And that's the whole game. And that's what they're doing. And that's why on January 15th, BMNR is getting approval to issue a lot more shares. We're not talking about a small amount. We were talking about a lot more shares, okay? So when this happens, it also signals what's called capital allocation skill, which is huge for the stock price because investors pay up for teams that allocate capital well. So if they see that BMNR and MSTR, Saylor, Tom Lee, are allocating capital in a smart way, and they're issuing shares above the net asset value, so they're issuing them at a premium, then long-term investors like that. And that proves that they have discipline, it builds trust, and expands the shareholder base of more people wanting to buy the stock. So it also attracts a different class of buyers, and you're seeing this with MSTR and BMNR quite a bit now, where lots of institutions are flowing in. If you look at MSTR, 50 to 60% of what holds the stock or who holds the stock is institutions. So you have a different class of buyers that are buying into it. You have pension funds that buy MSTR, okay, and are buying the stock. So you're not looking at just crypto traders. And when we look at this market today, we got a totally different market because retail is getting shaken out right now and institutions are coming in and owning the game. So when you look at this, like you have long-term investors coming in, you have funds coming in, you have long-term holders coming in, you have strategy-focused investors coming in. These buyers who are institutions will hold for longer, will reduce the volatility and support higher prices over time. That's the goal, okay? So higher prices over time is the key, right? In the short term, we all know it's been a shit show recently, okay? So a stock becomes, when you look at MSTR or BMNR, this stock for BMNR is a levered ETH proxy, right? If ETH goes up, the stock doesn't just follow, it can outperform. And why that is because each share represents more Ethereum over time. This is why MSTR has outperformed Bitcoin in the long run when you look at it. And I should say not in the long run, in bull cycles. When you look at it, MSTR outperforms Bitcoin by a large amount. But when you look at more bearish cycles and bearish sentiment, it drops way lower. And that's the risk of holding an asset like this. Long term, I think the benefits far outweigh just holding Bitcoin by itself. But it doesn't mean for me, like I own Bitcoin and I own MSTR. For BMNR, I just own BMNR. I don't own any Ethereum, okay? So I care about ETH per share because the stock market prices how much ETH backs my share today and how much it might back it tomorrow. All right. And so that is the game. In summing it up, that's what MSTR and BMNR are actually doing. Now, again, this only works if ETH per share is actually going up. If it stops, the premium collapses and the stock can underperform. Okay. So if you're looking at these companies and you're analyzing like what MSTR and BMNR are doing, you got to look at the leadership. One, are they disciplined? Okay, this is the summary of today. One, look at the leadership. Are they disciplined? Are they issuing more shares when the stock's trading at a premium? That's the one thing you want to pay attention to. If they're issuing more shares when the stock's trading at a premium to the value of its Bitcoin, the net asset value of its Bitcoin or its Ethereum, if they're issuing more shares when it's trading at a premium, it is accretive long-term for the shareholders. It is good because you're getting more ETH per share and more Bitcoin per share. If they are not doing that consistently, then you have to question, like, what is the leadership doing? Right. So that's the first thing. You just look at the top. Are they disciplined? Like, are they committed to their strategy? Do they continue to buy ETH consistently, or do they continue to buy Bitcoin consistently? And when you look at BMNR and MSTR, they're both buying consistently. They continue to do that. So they continue to do what they say they're going to do. Do both of these companies own more than 3% of the supply? They do. So there is no second best. Nobody's going to catch MSTR and nobody's going to catch BMNR. So if you were going to play in this game of digital asset treasury companies, to me, these are the two to look at. All right. And then Do you think over the long term they're going to hold more control over the supply? So is ETH going to go up on BMNR's balance sheet to 5% one day? Will Strategy own 4% or 5% of Bitcoin? And so when you start to look at that, these companies become a very, very important part of the infrastructure of just digital assets overall, because they control such a large supply. That's why you see Saylor out right now meeting with a lot of the banks. Like, he is networked in. We had this whole game condition that was going on between Morgan Stanley and MSTR and the attacks that were going online, whatever the reason for that. But when you look long term, he's going to play together with the banks. He's going to play together with the large institutions because he has such power, and Strategy has such power in controlling 3% of supply. BMNR has such power in controlling 3% of supply. You haven't even seen how powerful these companies will be in the future, because we're not in the future yet. But if you predict 5 years into the future and you take a look at how powerful BMNR is going to be and how powerful Strategy is going to be, it's game over. And if you look and you balance these two, there's questions of whether Ethereum will be the winner long-term, Solana will be the winner long-term. If you look at where the motion and the direction is going of where institutions are building right now, it's on Ethereum. If you look at the stablecoin market, the largest share, it's on Ethereum. So right now, Ethereum looks like the winner. And I don't think institutions are all of a sudden going to build and move their entire, one of their entire strategies to Ethereum and then all of a sudden switch in a year. Okay. But if you're looking long-term, like Bitcoin to me, long-term is the most solid, because there's not going to be another Bitcoin, in my opinion. There's questions of Ethereum, Solana. So is BMNR a bit more of a risk over the next 5 to 6 years? Yeah. Compared to Strategy, which owns Bitcoin, and nothing's going to compete with Bitcoin. They're just two different plays. So you got to look at it as you're looking 5, 6 years in the future. So you haven't even seen power yet, right? We haven't even seen what it looks like. Like, Strategy will be one of the most valuable companies in the world in the future. They just will. If you believe Bitcoin one day is going to $1 million, which I do. BMNR has accumulated in 5 months the amount of supply that Strategy accumulated in 5 years. So if you don't think that company's going into power, think again. It is a totally different game, man. So these companies will dominate into the future. Short term, holding an asset like this, if you want to have the upside in the future, you also have to accept the fact that there's downturns and volatility with these stocks. Not financial advice to anybody, just giving you the conceptual idea of it. I also have taken a beating where I watch Strategy run all the way up and run all the way down. But I'm still holding on to Strategy because I know where the all-time highs were, a year ago or whatever it was. I believe long-term, we will break that again in the long term. And BMNR is just getting warmed up, man. Just getting warmed up. Okay, so will BMNR in the future like blow the top off? I absolutely believe so. But we got to watch. The market's uncertain right now. The sentiment's really poor. Retail is completely getting shaken out. And hey, I get it, man. Like, this is not for the faint-hearted to be invested in these stocks. It's just not. Like, you have to have an extreme stomach for volatility, and you like a cast iron stomach for it. And you have to have like massive belief in the future. And I think this is just kind of the game when crypto tanks, the weak hands fold and they get out. And I get it. Because if people have lifestyle needs that they need, or, family needs that they need, or things that they need, it's like, okay, I was expecting it to go up, and everybody was in October, November. They're expecting to blow off top. At least the first time we haven't had it in a crypto cycle. So everybody's expecting it. And so people got hurt and they got hit. And so now it's like, okay, we accept the fact in present time we got whacked, right? It's nobody's fault. I take responsibility. If the stock that I own goes down, I take responsibility. But we got whacked. So with that, what's the viewpoint now? And the viewpoint goes to the future. My time horizon was I'm going to take profits in October and November. That never came. So now I look into the future and I go, okay, I'm looking 4 or 5 years down the road for MSTR and BMNR. That's all I'm looking at. Now, on a daily basis, I'm trading the heck out of BMNR and I'm picking up more shares. And that's been my game plan for the last 4 months since I've been trading the stock. Okay. Because I want to pick up more shares because I believe in the stock. So, it's really a shift of viewpoint right now that I think everybody needs to hold on to, or whatever somebody wants to do, because it's your viewpoint. But I think a viewpoint shift is needed because you have to look at things through new lenses, because these are completely new lenses. And they're foggy too, because nobody knows what to expect and they're uncertain. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know what to expect in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I don't know what to expect at all. Okay. But I do know what to expect in 4 to 5 years. Okay. Which is Bitcoin being stronger than ever, Ethereum being stronger than ever, Bitcoin more likely being stronger than ever, just because you have more competing blockchains with Ethereum, Solana, etc. And then MSTR being extremely strong and BMNR being extremely strong. That's the hand that I'm playing. Okay. So for whatever it's worth, that's the summary. And the summary of today is that is how net asset value works. And that is why when you have a company like BMNR and MSTR issuing more shares, the next time you hear them issuing more shares, take a look. Did they do it when the stock was trading at a premium? If they did, it's great for you as a shareholder in the long term, because you want more ETH per share and more Bitcoin per share. And anything you hear in the headlines that says they're diluting the shares, they're destroying the shareholder value, none of that is true if you're looking at this from a long-term perspective and you're looking at this through the smart lens, and the only lens to look through, because it's the true lens. The reason you own this company is you want more ETH per share, because in the long run, or more Bitcoin per share in the long run, that's what's going to help the stock accelerate in price, okay, in the long run, and potentially give me the gains that I want when the market turns bullish again. That's why I own the stock, okay? Not because I'm sitting here and I'm going to be significant about what ETH per share is amazing or Bitcoin per share is amazing. No, I want the damn stock price to go up, right? But those are the fundamentals that will help it long term. And that's why I care, right? So I hope this helps you. I hope this serves you. If you want my book, go get it down below, called Money Game. It's free. And I spent a lot of time writing this, and I'm really proud of this book, and you should go snag it if you want to. It's really a cool book, and give it to a friend. Like, give it away for free for Christmas. Say, give it to a friend, give it to a family member, give it to your father, because I go through traditional finance and I compare traditional finance to digital finance, because I was in both worlds. I grew up in traditional finance, and I compare them both, and I show you the problem with traditional finance, and then I show you the opportunity with where the future is going. Also, my trading strategies down below with a video that walks you through exactly how I am trading and exactly how I will pick up more shares of BMNR and how I have been doing that. Okay. So I hope it serves you guys. Have a tremendous rest of the day. And I will see you very, very, very soon. And just for a picture of the book, it's down below. You can see it. Click the link, grab the book. You will love the read. The people who've read it have loved it. And also our community is, we have a community of people who are trading that I'm teaching, and they're crushing it. And we have people who have never traded before. They're actually winning doing this, because I've simplified it and made the money game simpler. Okay. That doesn't mean when you trade, you don't lose. The goal is to win more than you lose and pick up more shares. That's my goal, at least. All right. I'll see you soon. Have a tremendous Sunday. You guys are amazing.